To see inheritance at work, let's go into our web page and modify the styles for our web page to say that divs should have a font size of, and let's make it very small to make this noticeable, 8 pixels. I'll save that and refresh the page, and you'll notice that the text inside of this div is now 8 pixels, and the text that is inside of a paragraph that is inside of a div is also 8 pixels. And that's because the paragraph inherited this font size from its parent div. We can verify that by going into the developer tools in Internet Explorer or in Chrome. In Chrome, I'll hit F12, come down to this paragraph, and you can see inherited from div is a font size of 8 pixels. Now, of course, you can override inherited values. In this case, I can go and I can explicitly say that paragraph should have a font size of 22 pixels. This will make this very noticeable. And you'll notice that the text inside of a div is 8 pixels, but the text inside of our paragraphs, even the ones that are inside of a div, is now 22 pixels. And in fact, you can see where font size of 8 pixels that is inherited from div, that now displays in a strike-through font, which means it was overridden by some other rule. In this case, the matched CSS rule that says paragraphs have a font size of 22 pixels. If you think about it, then again, this inheritance for font size makes sense. Imagine that inside of this div, we had some additional markup, like a word that was inside of a strong tag and a word that's inside of an emphasis. I'll add that to both the div and also here at the end of this paragraph, and save this and refresh. And you'll notice that those individual elements, emphasis and strong, inherited the font size settings of the parent container that they were inside of. And this is a good thing because this is probably the way that you want the text to display. Just because you're emphasizing a word doesn't mean that you want it to jump back and use some different font size. You want it to fit with the rest of the text that is inside of a div or inside of a paragraph. And I want to be able to do that without writing individual style rules that say, okay, the emphasis inside of a paragraph should be 22 pixels, but the emphasis inside of a div should be 8 pixels. Everything is just inherited and is just going to work for me. So let's look here and see that emphasis inherits a font size of 22 pixels from being inside of a paragraph. What will make this slightly confusing is that not every property value is inherited. Font size is an example of a property value that can be inherited from a parent, but a border is an example of something that cannot be or is not inherited from a parent by default. And over time, you'll learn what property values are inheritable and what property values are not, and typically, again, these settings make sense. So for example, let's save this style sheet and see that I now have a border around my 22 pixel font inside of a paragraph, but notice that the emphasis and the strong words did not inherit that border. What we don't want to do is draw a border inside of the border to have a border around this emphasis that's inside of the border that's part of the paragraph. That particular value is not inherited. What you'll find as you work more and more with CSS is that font-related properties are typically inheritable. So font size, font family, also list-related styles are inheritable. So things like list style type and list style, those will inherit. When it comes to margins and padding and border, those values typically do not get inherited by child elements.